Network show. This is the Sunday edition, January 17th, 2021 is Dr. King weekend. And, I've been re-airing some broadcasts I've done dealing with Dr. King on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. So we talked a little bit about that on Friday's show. A little bit about Dr. King on Friday's show, and then also I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday also. So on our on the show tomorrow, we'll share some excerpts of me on Roland Martin Unfiltered and what we discussed. But today we want to deal with some of Dr. King's legacy and dispelling myths about Dr. King, because there's so many myths and misinformation about Dr. King, and you hear a lot of it this time of the year, and a lot of people mean well and things like that, but I've said before, I don't go to a lot of Dr. King Day celebrations, and it's not because I don't like Dr. King. I do, but it's because a lot of Dr. King Day celebrations, it seems that they're organized by people who never studied Dr. King. So, and I speak here and there at Dr. King Day celebrations. I don't get asked to speak at a lot of them because I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. Okay, I don't deal with the Dr. King that they can use to pimp white corporations for guilt money. I don't deal with the Dr. King that is used to make white people feel comfortable with the oppression of African Americans. Okay, that's the distorted legacy of Dr. King. All right, so we deal with the real history and deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of that on today's show. I have some clips, some articles to share. And then also today is the birth date of another one of my heroes, the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. We know Dr. King's birthday is January 15th, okay, born in 1929. And then also today is the birth date of the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, born Cassius Marcellus Clay, okay, born in 1942. So you see me with one of my Muhammad Ali shirts on, right? And then you see Muhammad Ali behind me as well. Always have the two pictures of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X behind me. All right, so we'll talk about this. So we'll do a Dr. King's distorted legacy. We'll deal with some myths about Dr. King, dispelling some myths about Dr. King. There's a good article from the Washington Post dealing with 5 myths about Dr. King, 5 myths about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This is written by Donna Murch. And we talked about that some before in this show. And we'll talk a little bit about Malcolm X as well, because they're all connected. All right. And I'm going to share an excerpt of a interview that Dr. King did in 1967. Okay. 1967 with NBC News. This is from March. I think it's March 1967. I think no, it has to be May 1967. May 8th, 1967. And it's called After Civil Rights, Black Power. After Civil Rights, Black Power. Okay. So it's a lot of people haven't heard this interview or seen the interview, and it will cause people to, I think, look at Dr. King differently and see from after the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65, there was a shift in Dr. King from civil rights to human rights. So you really have to study the trajectory and chronology of Dr. King's life. And then also we need to read books that Dr. King wrote as well, because Dr. King wrote 5 books. Okay. Dr. King wrote 5 books, and you know, unfortunately, a lot of times people don't know that, and I listen to what they say, and I'm like, you talking about? Are you talking about Dr. King, or are you talking about BB King, or Evelyn Champagne King? Which, I mean, which king are you talking about? Okay, so this is Dr. King's last book, and probably to me his most important book. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? All right. So you'll probably hear this referenced. Hopefully, you hear this referenced a lot, in the next few days. Hopefully. Okay. So, all right. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, to sign up for our email newsletter as well. Okay. If you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and then also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show, paypal.me /the AHN Show. So the donations really help out, because we're here 6 days a week instead of 1 day a week. For 4 years, we were doing Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation WFDF in Detroit. As of October 12th, 2020, we started doing Mondays, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, and Sunday. So I'm on the air 6 days a week. So there's a lot of research, a lot of time commitment. So that definitely helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, buy all this paper and ink that I keep going through as well. So we definitely appreciate that. So $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and then also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show, and at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and all my DVD lectures and digital downloads are at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, including a presentation I've done dealing with the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. Okay, the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. We have that in DVD and digital download format. So we'll post a link to that also. Okay, so before the break here, we're coming up here on a break in a few minutes. I want to go to a little bit of, we'll jump into a little bit of this, I think, interview from, let's do this. We're going to go to the clip with Muhammad Ali, Jalen. We'll do that first, because that's only less than 2 minutes. And since we're coming up on a break, I don't want to break up the interview with NBC. So on March 30th, 1967, Muhammad Ali and Dr. King had a meeting. Muhammad Ali and Dr. King had a secret friendship. Okay, a lot of people don't know about this. There was a article from biography.com that talked about the secret friendship between Muhammad Ali and Dr. King, and an unexpected friendship, because Dr. King was a Baptist minister. Muhammad Ali was a minister in the Nation of Islam. And you would think, what's Dr. King doing with this black Muslim? What's Dr. King doing with him? All right. But they had a secret friendship. So there was a meeting that they had March 30th, 1967. And this is the month before Muhammad Ali refuses to be drafted into the army, which is going to be April 1967. And then this is also a few days before Dr. King officially comes out against the Vietnam War, which was April 4th, 1967. Okay, let's go to this clip, Jay.
What did you discuss back in the hotel room? Nothing, just friends, just like Khrushchev and Kennedy and everybody. When the people, all of the politicians of all other white races come together, and they, although they believe different, they think different, whites can come together and discuss the common cause. But whenever a few of us come together, the world is shook up. And I'll say, whatever went back there is our business.
Reverend King, do you agree? Oh, yes, yes. We had a very good discussion on many matters. And, of course, these are not things that we would discuss here, but we do have common problems and common concerns. And above all, as Muhammad Ali has just said, we are all victims of the same system of oppression. And even though we may have different religious beliefs, this does not at all bring about a difference in terms of our concern.
Do you share the same, one more question, do you share the same concern that Muhammad has for his draft status?
Oh, I certainly do. My views on the draft are clear. I'm against it. And I think the sooner our country does away with the draft, the better it will be for everybody. I'm very disturbed about the militaristic posture of our nation. And I think until we have a radical reordering of priorities in our country, we're going more and more to the depths and, I should say, to the doom that follows arrogance of power, as Senator Fulbright said.
Okay, yeah, pause it right there. And I'm going to play that again. We're coming up on the break. I'm going to play that again. But Muhammad Ali said, he talked about the differences between he and Dr. King. But he said, we're still brothers. At the end of the day, we're still brothers. And that's such a powerful statement. This is Muhammad Ali before he refuses to be drafted, okay, into the army, and he's going to be stripped of his title. The U.S. government did to Ali what no man in the ring could do to him, take away his title. And then when Dr. King comes out in opposition to the Vietnam War, April 4th, 1967, overnight, he becomes the most hated man in America. All right, we're going to deal with this on the other side of the break. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. For 25 years, Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought after public speaker on topics of history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among changemakers for NBC Universal's Race the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Kemeticwear.com is the go-to online source for Kemetic African fashion and lifestyle products with a contemporary twist. We're committed to offering unique styles reflecting African heritage. Kemeticwear.com is inspired by KemeticScribes.com to influence our people in learning and showing pride. Please visit our website at Kemeticwear.com.
Visit 4glossygirls.com. That's the number 4glossygirls.com, and follow them on Instagram at 4glossygirls.
Black Bees products are a collection of natural, organic, personal care products with an appreciation of nature and bees. Our philosophy is without bees, we have nothing. We are honoring our Nile Valley ancestors who understood the importance of bees. Black Bees created a high-quality, natural, organic personal care line that would be affordable to everyone. We hope you try and enjoy our Black Bees products line and come back and visit us at blackbeesproducts.com.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, January 17th, 2021, and we are live. It's Dr. King Day weekend, and we're dealing with Dr. King's distorted legacy. We're going to deal with some myths about Dr. King as well. So right before the break, I shared an excerpt of this interview that Dr. King, Muhammad Ali did March 30th, 1967. March 30th, 1967. And this was 1 month. This was the month before Muhammad Ali came out against the Vietnam War. And this was also a few days before, this was the month before, a few days before Dr. King came out against the Vietnam War, and this was the month before Muhammad Ali refused to be drafted into the army as well and go fight in Vietnam. I'm going to go back to this. We're going to play this one more time. Some people haven't heard this before. It's a short clip, so we're going to play this again, and then we're going to get into this. I want to get to the interview that Dr. King did May 8th, 1967 also. But let's go back to this short interview. Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
What did you discuss back in the hotel room? Nothing, just friends, just like cruise chef and Kennedy and everybody. When the people, all of the politicians of all other white races come together, and they, although they believe different, they think different, whites can come together and discuss the common cause. But whenever a few of us come together, the world is shook up. And I'll say, whatever went back there is our business.
Reverend King, do you agree? Oh, yes, yes. We had a very good discussion on many matters. And, of course, these are not things that we would discuss here, but we do have common problems and common concerns. And above all, as Muhammad Ali has just said, we are all victims of the same system of oppression. And even though we may have different religious beliefs, this does not at all bring about a difference in terms of our concern.
Still brother.
Do you share the same? One more question. Do you share the same concern that Muhammad has for his draft status?
Oh, I certainly do. My views on the draft are clear. I'm against it. And I think the sooner our country does away with the draft, the better it will be for everybody. I'm very disturbed about the militaristic posture of our nation. And I think until we have a radical reordering of priorities in our country, we're going more and more to the depths, and I should say to the doom that follows arrogance of power, as Senator Fulbright said.
Okay, so Dr. King said that even though we have different religions, we still basically have the same concerns for our people. And Muhammad Ali said, we're still brothers. Okay, see, that is crucial, because a lot of times we allow religion or ideology or pseudo ideology or what have you to divide us as a people. And we still have the same problems. We're still fighting against the same conditions. Now, Malcolm X was calling for a unification of the civil rights leaders while he was still in the Nation of Islam. There was there's an article from the Washington Post that deals with the day Dr. King met Malcolm X. Okay, the day Dr. King met Malcolm X, and it talks about, well, first of all, when that was March 26, 1964. And when Dr. King meets Malcolm X, Malcolm X meets Dr. King. This is at the Senate debate, U.S. Senate debate for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Okay, there's a debate going on. There's a filibuster taking place. There's an article from Deneen L. Brown for Washington Post. Martin Luther King Jr. met Malcolm X just once. The photo still haunts us with what was lost. The photo still haunts us with what was lost. And see, a lot of people don't know Malcolm joins the civil rights movement when he officially separates from the Nation of Islam. When we talk about Dr. King, we have to study the chronology of Dr. King's life and what period of time you're talking about. When we talk about Malcolm, it's crucial to study the chronology, the trajectory of Malcolm's life, what period of time that you're talking about. Because a lot of people want to quote Malcolm out of context. And it's like, is this Malcolm while he's with the Nation of Islam? Is this Malcolm when he left the Nation of Islam? Is this Malcolm before he left to go to Mecca, late April 64? Is this Malcolm before he went to Mecca? So Malcolm officially separates from the Nation of Islam March 8, 1964. He meets Dr. King for the first and only time late March 64, but it's before he goes to Mecca. That was March 26, 1964. So when people talk about Malcolm's speech, the Battle or the Bullet, that he gave at least 3 times that I know of. First time, March 29th, 1964 in Washington Heights, New York. Second time, April 3rd, 1964 in Cleveland, Ohio. Third time, April 4th, 1964 in Detroit, Michigan at the historic King Solomon Baptist Church. When he gives that speech, it's a few days after he meets Dr. King. He references the Senate debate on the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because he was just there witnessing it on March 26, 1964. Okay, so, and then you got to study Malcolm's speeches after the Battle of the Bullet. Because some people act like that's the only speech Malcolm ever gave. Just like some people act like I Have a Dream, which was originally called Normalcy Never Again. I Have a Dream is not even the original name of the speech. A lot of people act like that's the only speech Dr. King ever gave. And then the speech was changed, the name of the speech was changed to A Canceled Check. Okay, so, but that's a powerful interview with Dr. King and Dr. King and Muhammad Ali. But July 31st, 1963, when Malcolm is still in the Nation of Islam, Malcolm sends a letter to the leading civil rights leaders, including Dr. King, and he's calling for he's requesting a meeting with the civil rights leaders, and he's calling for a unification of the civil rights leaders and their followers. Okay, and when Malcolm meets Dr. King, he tells Dr. King, "I'm throwing myself into the heart of the civil rights struggle. I'm throwing myself into the heart of the civil rights struggle." And Malcolm is calling for a unification of the civil rights leaders and their followers. And he says, if John F. Kennedy can meet with Nikita Khrushchev, who was the leader of the Soviet Union at the time, he said, if they can set aside their major differences and meet, then Negro leaders should be able to set aside our minor differences and meet. And he said, we have to find a common solution to a common problem posed by a common enemy. This is Malcolm while he's still in the Nation of Islam. Okay. So, Dr. King did, and Malcolm said, if you could not send if you cannot attend, could you send a representative? So Dr. King did not attend and did not send a representative either to that meeting. And that was the month before the March on Washington, which was August 28th, 1963. Okay, now the interview with Dr. King and Malcolm X. At this time, March 30th, 1967. See, Malcolm is already assassinated, February 21st, 1965. These two, Dr. King and Muhammad Ali, I should say, Dr. King and Muhammad Ali. These two were probably the most recognizable African-American men, definitely in America, probably in the world. Okay? And you're talking to both of them at the same time. There's an article from biography.com, and I've talked about this before, from January 14th, 2020, January 14th, 2019, and it was updated January 21st, 2020. It's called Martin Luther King Jr. and Muhammad Ali's Surprising Secret Friendship. Martin Luther King Jr. and Muhammad Ali's Surprising Secret Friendship. Okay, and their birthdays are close to each other as well. Dr. King's was January 15th. Muhammad Ali is January 17th. But very quickly here, it talks about how in 1961, an athlete named Cassius Clay prepared for a bout with Duke Sabadong in Las Vegas. The 10-round boxing match was the young boxer's seventh, but his swagger and charm had already gained him admirers. That day, the man who would soon become Muhammad Ali received a telegram from an unexpected correspondent. Quote, your youthful good humor, physical prowess, and flippant charm have made you an idol to many American young people. May God protect you and your opponent in the coming contest. It was signed Martin Luther King Jr. Now, it was an overture to an unlikely friendship, one that took place on the stormy stage of the civil rights movement, though it is uncertain how many times Dr. King and Muhammad Ali met during their lifetimes. They were friends. But publicly, the two men could not have been more opposed, and their secret friendship was only revealed to the public through surveillance files that showed the FBI had long been following both of them. Okay, it's only revealed through surveillance files that show the FBI have been following them. Now, there's a new documentary out, and let me know if you've seen it. There's a new documentary out dealing with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the FBI and the surveillance that the surveillance the FBI was doing on Dr. King. And I'm going to pull this up here. There was an article from New York Times dealing with this, and there's also one from NPR, National Public Radio. MLK FBI humanizes a civil rights icon's legacy. So if you've seen that documentary, give me a call. Let me know what you think about it. And I have to check that out. I still have to watch. I have to watch also One Night in Miami. That just became available on Amazon Prime. So that's about a fictitious account of a night in 1964 Miami with Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke. They meet at a hotel. We've talked about that here before. So it's available right now, Amazon Prime. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm still trying to I haven't had a chance to watch Ma Rainey either on Netflix. I had to watch that as well. Okay, so I'm a little, hey, I'm doing radio 6 days a week, doing the best I can. But MLK FBI, New York Times has an article about this. King, Hoover, and the Tell of the Tape. Sam Pollard's fascinating documentary chronicles the FBI director's obsession with the private life and political affiliations of the civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, so we'll post this link here, and then we'll probably talk after I watch it. We'll talk about it some more. But the calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. And then I'm going to go to this clip here from NBC News, the interview with Dr. King from 1967 in just a minute here. Also, if you'd like this type of information, once again, you can donate to the African History Network. $ the AHN Show through Cash App. $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Okay. All right. I want to go back to this article here dealing with Dr. King and Muhammad Ali. So despite their differences, Dr. King and Ali had a strong bond. The bond between Dr. King and Muhammad Ali was surprising. Ali was the world's most famous boxer and an outspoken member of the Nation of Islam. They focused on separation from white people. The Nation of Islam, one of the things, also independence and educating yourself on history, etc. They preached against integration. Now, that was the opposite of Dr. King's ideas of nonviolent protests, and his main focus was on desegregation, not integration. And there's a difference there. But during the 1960s, the men found themselves on two different sides of a growing rift between Dr. King's civil rights movement on the one hand and the Nation of Islam's turbulent vision of Black power on the other hand. But the men had much in common. Both had grown up in the segregated South. So Dr. King in Atlanta, Georgia, and Muhammad Ali in Louisville, Kentucky. And I've actually been to the Muhammad Ali Museum in Louisville, Kentucky. I was speaking in Louisville back in 2000, either 12 or 2013. I was speaking there with Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, who's in the Hidden Colors documentaries. He's one of my teachers. So we were doing a presentation together there in Louisville. It was actually a screening of Hidden Colors 2. And we were doing questions and answers after the screening. And we went to the Muhammad Ali Museum. Also, it's a fantastic museum there they have with Ali. But the men had much in common. Both had grown up in the segregated South. They were arguably the two most famous African-American men in America. Dr. King for his protests and preaching, Ali for his astonishing athleticism. And by the end of the 1960s, they were two of the most hated men in the United States. By the end of the 1960s, they were two of the most hated men in the United States. Racists branded them both with ugly stereotypes. They decried Dr. King's insistence on the dignity and worth of African-American men and his agitation on behalf of the poor, and derided Muhammad Ali's insistence on Black pride, from his name change in 1964 to his resistance to the Vietnam War as a white man's fight. Publicly, the men could not seem more opposed. Integration is wrong, Muhammad Ali said in 1964, when Dr. King was at the height of his visibility for nonviolent protests and calls to integrate or desegregate African-American people into white society. And the real fight was, we wanted first-class citizenship. We wanted all of our rights now. We wanted equal access. Okay, the fight, we weren't trying to give up our neighborhoods and give up our businesses and things like that. At the same time that you have the civil rights movement taking place, you also have the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts in 1952 and 1956 that are driving thousands of miles of interstate highway throughout African-American communities, disrupting our communities, wiping out a lot of our homes, wiping out a lot of our businesses. This is at the same time that the civil rights movement is taking place. Okay, so check out this article here from biography.com. Meanwhile, Dr. King repeatedly declined to engage with the Nation of Islam and turned down an invitation by Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam's most visible figure, to march together. Quote, I totally disagree with many of his political and philosophical views, end quote, Dr. King said later. And Dr. King turned down the opportunity. Malcolm was inviting the civil rights leaders back in July 31st, 1963. He was inviting them to a rally in Harlem, okay? And Dr. King declined. But February 24th, 1966, Dr. King meets with who? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Dr. King and Coretta Scott King go to Elijah Muhammad's house in Chicago, and Dr. King has a meeting with him. Now, this is almost a year to the date after Malcolm was assassinated. Okay, this was February 24th, 1966. All right, so read this article here from Biography. I want to go to the clip here from NBC News. So May 8th, 1967, NBC News did an interview with Dr. King at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. The interviewer's name is Sander Vanacour, V-A-N-O-C-U-R. And they're talking about a new phase in the civil rights movement. And they're talking about after civil rights, Black power. After civil rights, Black power. Let's go to this clip.
Country. Is there something about nonviolence that made it, and I use that in the past tense, that made it more useful among Southern Negroes than the ghetto Negroes of the North?
I wouldn't say there's anything that makes it more useful to Southern Negroes. I think it is true that we've had more nonviolent movements in the South because the problem for many years was more crystallized and, in a sense, more visible in the South. We didn't have many civil rights activities on a massive scale in the North until 3 or 4 years ago. So I would say that we just haven't had a chance to experiment on a broad scale with nonviolence in the Northern ghetto. I have the feeling that nonviolence is as applicable and workable in the Northern ghetto as it is in the South. There's a larger job there. The frustrations at points are much deeper. The bitterness is deeper. And I think that's because in the South, we can see pockets of progress here and there. We've really made some strides that are very visible, and every Southern Negro knows that he can do things today that he couldn't do 4 or 5 years ago. Whereas in the North, the Negro sees only retrogress, and he doesn't find it as easy to get his vision centered on his target, the target of opposition, as he does in the South. Consequently, this is made for despair and at many points cynicism, a feeling that you can't win. And it simply means that we've got to develop in the North a massive job of organization and mobilizing forces and resources to deal with the problem in the urban ghettos of the North, just as we've done it in the South.
In the South, particularly in Alabama, you had visible villains, Jim Clark, Bull Connor, cattle prods, police dogs. But in the North, you don't have those visible villains. Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible?
Well, that's exactly right. And this is what I was saying when I said it's harder to see a target. In the South, in the nonviolent movement, we were aided always, on the whole, by the brutality of our opponent. It isn't the same way in the North. The other thing is that you don't have legal segregation in the North as you do in the South. So it is much more difficult to get people to see exactly what you're doing, but it isn't an impossible job. It's a hard, it's a tedious job at times to get people to be aroused from their apathetic slumbers, but I still feel that Negroes in the North can be motivated just as they were motivated in the South. And I think as time goes on, with the growing economic deprivation in the Negro community, it will even be easier, because people will come to see that not only is something wrong in general, but something is wrong in particular in their own economic and housing situations.
What is it? I mean, how do you find it? It's very subtle in the North, is it not?
It's subtle, but it's becoming much more visible. Anybody can see that the schools are more segregated in the North today than they were in 1954 when the Supreme Court rendered its decision declaring segregation unconstitutional. Anybody can look around the ghetto and see that ghetto schools are predominantly segregated and devoid of quality. Anyone who moves through a major ghetto of our country will see the housing conditions. People don't have to be reminded that they are forced to live in slums in many instances, and they're often rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. And it isn't too hard to see the exploitation that the Negro confronts in the ghetto, where he is forced to pay more for less and constantly trying to make ends meet, but because of either no job as a result of unemployment or a job that is so economically unprofitable that the person can't make ends meet. And I think they see all of these things, and more they're coming to see them, because before the people of the North were looking to the South, and they supported the struggles of the South. Now they're coming to see that their problems are very real, and they've got organized to grapple with them.
Was there something hypocritical about the fact that the South existed and the North could point the finger? And then when the Civil Rights Acts were passed in the early 60s, you couldn't point the finger anymore?
Well, there's no doubt about the hypocrisy of large segments of the nation on the whole question of racial equality. I think the best example is that many of the senators from the North and the West, and congressmen generally, who voted for civil rights legislation in 64 and even in 65 of the Voting Rights Bill, refused last year to vote for civil rights legislation because it dealt with an issue applicable to the North, the whole housing question. And this, it seems to me, was the greatest expression of the hypocrisy of many of our citizens and many of the senators and congressmen of the North.
But isn't that
pause it right there. Pause it right there, Jalen.
That people knew that Negroes.
Pause it right there, and you just back it up about 20 seconds. Okay, so what Dr. King is saying is that in 64, the Civil Rights Act of 64, and the vote on the Civil Rights Act in the U.S. Senate, after the filibuster was broken, and you had a lot of the Southern segregationist Democrats vote against it. Most of the Northern Democrats voted for it. All right. A lot of people don't make the distinction between those two. You had two main factions of the Democratic Party, just like you have multiple factions of the Democratic Party now. You have the moderates, you have the progressives, you have establishment Democrats, things like that. You have factions then as well. What he's saying is, okay, they voted for the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65, but then when it came to fair housing in 66, right, they didn't vote for it. They voted against it. And then the other thing is, he talks about, there's a segment here where he talks about some of those same people that voted for the civil rights bills being against a guaranteed income. Okay. The guaranteed income that Andrew Yang was talking about when he was running for president in 2019 and 2020, that largely comes from Dr. King, and that was part of the Poor People's Campaign. That was an initiative of the Poor People's Campaign, a guaranteed income for poor people. But then also, when we look at 67 and we look at June of 67, the Kerner Commission report. The Kerner Commission report that came out, it was commissioned in June of 67 by President Lyndon Johnson. But it comes out March of 68. Okay, and it comes out a month before Dr. King's assassinated. I've said this before. We should be pushing to have the Kerner Commission, the results of the Kerner Commission report implemented, because what it did was it looked at what was the cause of the rebellions. It was a study designed to look at the cause of the rebellions that were taking place in cities across the country. African Americans in Detroit, Newark, New Jersey, things like this. The rebellions. What was the cause of the rebellions? Why were they happening? What can be done to change the conditions so they don't happen again? Okay. We'll talk on the other side of the break. We'll talk some about that. I've dealt with the Kerner Commission report before. And a lot of times when we have these discussions, the Kerner Commission report gets left out because it talked about the role that racism played and the resentment that a lot of white people had towards African Americans, and it dealt with poverty, poor schools, poor job opportunities, police brutality as driving forces towards these racial explosions that were taking place and these rebellions that were taking place across the country. Okay, and the conclusion, their analysis and conclusion was on point, but President Johnson largely ignored the conclusions and did not implement them. But that's dealing with policy. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. All this deals with policies. Policies bring about conditions. Okay, I'm all for economic empowerment. All this stuff is not because of lack of economic empowerment. It's an understanding of a chronology of history and laws that have been put in place. And it was policies and laws put in place that also work to rob us of land, rob us of economic empowerment. Okay, but the conditions are created by policies. When we deal with 246 years of slavery, we deal with the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow segregation, largely being locked out of things like the 1862 Homestead Act, which gave away almost 250 million acres of land from 1862 to 1988, being locked out of the Southern Homestead Act of 1866, which gave away about 45 million acres of land, largely being locked out of the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887. And that redistributed about 138 million acres of land as well. It was supposed to go largely to Native Americans and Black Indians, things like this. The Dawes Allotment Act, named after Senator Henry L. Dawes in Massachusetts. 2/3 of that land went to white people. That's where you get the whole $5 Indian from. 2/3 of that land went to white people. Okay, so understand this chronology of history, and then when you deal with things like the overtaxation, overassessment of tax liability for properties, for land. Okay, this was one of the main ways that our land was taken away from us. Tax assessors over assessing the tax liability, or how much we have to pay in taxes for land that we own, farmland, things like this. And then when we can't pay the inflated tax assessment, then we lose our land. All right. This is one of the tools that was used to rob us of our land. There was economic empowerment, but there were laws and policies that robbed us of that economic empowerment. And then there was also laws and policies that locked us out. For instance, when you deal with after the Civil War ends, and you deal with a lot of major labor unions being created, like the National Labor Union, 1866. And these labor unions are being created to lock African Americans out of these skilled trades that we have been doing for free for 246 years, because these labor unions were only for white men, and various industries had to have contracts with these labor unions, and that they could only hire white men to lock us out of these jobs, because there were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. Okay. And then after slavery ends, now we can compete for these jobs. Now we're largely being locked out of these jobs and trying to lock us back into an agricultural basis in the sharecropping, things like this, and to keep us from competing for these jobs, because our skill set, blacksmiths, coppersmiths, barrel makers, engineers, anchor makers, all different types of things like this, our skill set was as good as white people, or in many cases even better than white people. Okay, so it's understanding this chronology of history and the laws and policies that have been put in place to lock us into this condition. So that comes from understanding politics and law. Okay, Economic empowerment has its place, but we're not in this predicament because of economic empowerment. We're in this predicament because of laws and policies that create conditions and attack us. All right, we're coming up on a break. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break, and we'll go back to this interview with Dr. King after Civil Rights Black Power. This is from May 8th, 1967. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, Future Radio, Michael Imhotep. And then also 910 AM welcomes former mayor of Flint, Michigan, Karen Weaver, the one and only Dr. Karen Weaver, to the airways starting Tuesday, January 19th. Karen Weaver will air Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Dr. Karen Weaver. Call her by her correct name. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right. Stand by, everybody. Yeah, people are losing their home to high taxes. See, that's historic. There was $600 million in over tax assessment here in Detroit. Thousands of people lost their homes right here just recently. The story just came out in 2020, I think it was, about the overtax assessment. $600 million. That's historic. Okay. If you look at there's an article from New York Times, Black people's land was stolen. Black people's land was stolen. And this deals with this history. I got a ton of information on this. This is from New York Times, June 20th, 2019 by Andrew W. Carl. And I've talked about it here on this show before. Okay. And this deals with the various ways. Another method using the law is called heirs property. Heirs property. And that's another way we lost a lot of our land like that we had in the South. Okay. So this is all dealing with understanding law. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and a writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, stand by, one commercial break. Okay. For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El-Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the changemakers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid El-Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com. With blackbusinesstee.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your Black business. Know your numbers and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support Black business, encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. BlackBusinessTea.com currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the Black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support Black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com.
Black Bees products are a collection of natural, organic, personal care products with an appreciation of nature and bees. Our philosophy is without bees, we have nothing. We are honoring our Nile Valley ancestors who understood the importance of bees. Black Bees created a high-quality, natural, organic personal care line that would be affordable to everyone. We hope you try and enjoy our Black Bees products line and come back and visit us at blackbeesproducts.com.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Comedicwear.com is the go-to online source for Comedic African fashion and lifestyle products with a contemporary twist. We're committed to offering unique styles reflecting our African heritage. Comedicwear.com is inspired by comedicscribes.com to influence our people in learning and showing pride. Please visit our website at comedicwear.com.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, January 17th, 2021. And we are live. It's Dr. King Day a weekend, and everybody's going to be celebrating Dr. King Day and talking about how he just wanted everybody to love everybody. He was a man of peace and things like that. They're not going to deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. They're not going to talk about the Dr. Most likely, they won't talk about the Dr. King that met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad February 24th, 1966. They won't talk about the Dr. King who had a secret friendship with Muhammad Ali. They won't talk about the Dr. King who in 1957 went to the celebration of Ghana's independence, and he went to meet with Kwame Nkrumah. And then each year on the anniversary of Ghana's independence, he goes back to Ghana. They won't talk about the Dr. King that studied the independence movement, the African independence movement on the continent of Africa as well, because the civil rights movement was happening concurrently with the African independence movement as well. And they were learning from one another. Okay. They're watching our struggle, and we're watching theirs. So right before the break, I talked about 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865, and how after the Civil War ended, you have a lot of these major labor unions created. You have American Federation of Labor created about it's about right around 1875, something like that. And these are labor unions created for white people, white men, and they're designed to lock African Americans out of these jobs that we have been doing for free for 246 years. So at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, and the call-in number is 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. It's a call-in number. We'll go to the phone lines in just in a few minutes here. At the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, there's a display when you go through the main exhibit and Still We Rise, you go through the replica of the slave ship, and then, they have statues of different periods of time dealing with history and dealing pertaining to slavery. And you'll see Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, things like this. There's a display on the wall, and it lists the 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. Okay. And that information comes from a book called The Other Slaves, the Other Slaves, and Mechanics, Artisans, and Craftsmen by James E. Newton and Ronald Lewis. James E. Newton and Ronald Lewis. And that book came out in 1978. Okay. So what happened was there was a sign up above the display, and it said you can't take pictures, right? So I went home, got a pen and a pad, came back, and I spent an hour writing them down, and I numbered them. That's how I know the 262. And here's a copy of it. Okay. I was looking for this a few days ago. It was another one of my file folders. I made different copies of this. But, we were anchor makers. We were artists, bakers, barkers, barrel makers, bartenders, basket makers, beer makers, blacksmiths, boarding housekeepers, boat corkers, boatmen, bonnet pressers, book binders, boot blacks. Boot blacks are shoe shine people who shine shoe shining. Okay, that's what Dick Rowland was. Dick Rowland, when you deal with the Tulsa massacre, June 1st, 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, and Dick Rowland and Sarah Page. And there were allegations that Dick Rowland sexually assaulted Sarah Page or assaulted her or what have you. He was a boot black. Okay, he was a shoe shineman. Brakesmen, brass founders, brewers, bricklayers, brick makers, bridle makers, brush makers. They have it in alphabetical order. Carpet cleaners, carriage makers, carvers, caterers, caulkers, chain makers, chair makers, chimney sweepers, clipboard carpenters, clergymen, clerks, cloak makers, cloth makers, clothiers, cigar makers, coachmen, coach painters, cobblers, coffin makers, collectors, confectioners. Confectioners, make candy, especially chocolates, make candy. Cooks, coppersmiths, cotton gin makers. So the cotton gin right around 1793. Eli Whitney. Then you have copies of the cotton gin as well. Cotton gin makers, cracker bakers, crafts instructors, daguerreotypers. The daguerreotype was the first photographic camera, named after John Daguerreotype, and the daguerreotype was created in the late 1820s, about 1826, and then is going to be available for commercial usage in about the 1830s. The daguerreotype, okay. Decorative furnishers, distillers, domestics, draftsmen, dressmakers, druggist assistants at like pharmacies, dyers, embroiderers, engine builders, engineers, engravers, finishers, fishermen, flower inspectors. You get the idea. So when I see movies and depictions of African Americans as slaves, and they just show us picking cotton, I'm like, that did happen, but it's like, come on now, okay, you trying to pull the cotton over our eyes. No, that's not all we did. No, we built the White House, the U.S. Capitol building. Those were skilled tradesmen. Those were, you had enslaved Africans as well as free African Americans and some white people that going to build the U.S. Capitol building. There's a book, the black man who built the White House, I think it is. I have it in the other room. But yeah, so I'm like, I see, this information, these reenactments, and they just show us picking cotton and stuff like that. I'm like, all right, that's the game you want to run. The black men built the Capitol. Black men built the Capitol, CAPITOL, discovering African American history in and around Washington, D.C. And the layout of Washington, D.C. was done by Benjamin Banneker, another man of African descent. Okay. And the layout of Washington, D.C. is a copy of the layout of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, which was built by African people. Okay. So wherever you go, that's where we are. You can't run away from yourself, even though many of us try, and our legs should be tired of running away from ourselves. But you read Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder, so we can connect the building of the U.S. Capitol by African men, and then the layout of Washington, D.C., where the U.S. Capitol is, by Benjamin Banneker, okay, and using science and understanding astronomy. And then and the layout of Washington, D.C. is a copy of the layout of ancient Egypt, built by African people as well. Okay. What you want to say slaves just pick cotton and cook masters' food? All right. I guess you think the South won the war, and and you still believe in the Tooth Fairy. Okay. All right. Let's go back to this. Well, let's see. Let's go quickly to the phone lines. Who we have here on line one? We still have Wadsworth, line one.
Hey, good evening, Michael.
Hey, Wadsworth, how you doing?
I have two comments for you, and I have one question for you.
Okay, I think he has a bad connection. I think Wadsworth has a bad connection. Okay, that sounds clearer. Go ahead. Okay, he has a bad. Hey, Jalen, help him out with his connection. It's a bad connection. Sounds like he's underwater. We'll come back to him. We'll come back to Wadsworth in just a minute here. We'll try to. It sounds like he's underwater. I can't understand what he's saying. Let's do this. In the meantime, I want to go back to this clip here. This is from May 8th, 1967. Dr. King is being interviewed by Sander Vanacker for NBC News. This interview is called After Civil Rights, Black Power. Let's go back to this clip. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on, Jalen. This is okay. Play it on your end. I'm gonna call back in because it's a bad connection somewhere. I'm gonna disconnect and call back into the station, Jalen. I can't even understand the clip now. Something happened. Let me disconnect and I'll call right back. All right, stand by, everybody. Hold on. This is live radio. We're broadcasting remotely. And something happened. The clip was playing well right before the break. I don't know. Stand by. All right, Jalen, can you hear me? Okay. All right. Let's go back to the clip, Jalen. Thank you.
Okay. I think the dilemma is much deeper. And one, during this period of transition, has to be very honest with America. And honesty impels me to admit that America has broad racist elements still alive. Racism is still existing in American society in many areas of the society, North and South. And the other thing is that there has never been a single, solid, determined commitment of large segments of white America on the whole question of racial equality. I think we have to see that vacillation has always existed, ambivalence has always existed, and this to me is the so-called white backlash. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. I see the white backlash as a continuation of the same ambivalence and vacillation of white America on the whole question of racial justice that has existed since the founding of our nation. I think the other thing that we must see at this time is that many of the people who supported us in Selma, in Birmingham, were really outraged about the extremist behavior toward Negroes. But they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and all poor people. It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality and quality education a reality in our schools. It's much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we're getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality.
Hey, pause it right there, Jalen. Hey, pause right there. Back that up for about a minute. Back it up for about a minute. He said, Dr. King said, it was never really a genuine intent by white people for African Americans to have full equality. They'll integrate a lunch counter. They'll desegregate the buses. He said, but he's basically saying they weren't ready for how far we were going to push this thing. They never intended to have full equality. And this is why I say, when you go study the civil rights movement, and even before the modern day civil rights movement, which is looked at as starting with the Montgomery bus boycott, December 5th, 1955, and the arrest of Rosa Parks, December 1st, 1955. And then some people start the modern day civil rights movement with the lynching of Emmett Till, August 28th, 1955 in Money, Mississippi, right? Even you go back before then, you go back to when African American soldiers are coming back home from World War I. We were fighting for first-class citizenship and all of our rights. Now you had what was known as the new Negro, okay? And we were saying we're not coming back to Jim Crow and the segregation. We want all of our rights now. When brothers came back home from World War II, like Medgar Evers. Medgar Evers was in Normandy on D-Day, okay? June 6, 1944, I think it was, on D-Day. Medgar Evers, he was one of almost 2,000 African-American soldiers who landed there in Normandy, France, okay? So when Medgar Evers comes back home, he gets involved in the civil rights movement, okay? Yeah, June 6, 1944, I was correct. And Medgar Evers, field secretary for the NAACP in Jackson, Mississippi, organizes boycotts and things like this. But when these African American soldiers come back, we want all of our rights now. We want first class citizenship. Okay. Let's do this. We have Wadsworth back. Let's go back to the phone lines because Wadsworth, Wadsworth, thanks for calling back in. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from. Go ahead with your question or comment.
I'm from Michigan. Is this a good question for you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I can hear you. Thanks for calling back.
Okay. I have two comments for you, and I got one question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Now my comments are because you know I'm part of the like the deaf media, the sign language community.
Yeah, deaf media sign language community. Yeah, go ahead.
And we had to leave from one organization, the Deaf Church TV, because they were, because this network was when it comes to news, they whatever came out of Trump's mouth, they treated it as the gospel. So we have to get away from that.
Okay.
And we have a brother, or we have a young brother. His name is Monte. He's also on YouTube, and this guy is like a young youth. He's very sharp. If you watch on YouTube,
okay,
this guy is like a young Michael Imhotep.
Okay.
And now my question.
What's his name? What's his name?
His name is Monte. Mondae.
Okay.
He's on YouTube.
Monte.
He's on YouTube every week.
Okay.
Every day.
Okay.
You need to check him out.
Okay.
Okay. And my question is this. Now we know the Republicans. Back in the day, the Republicans were for the black people because they wanted to free the slaves. And the Democrats wanted the slave owners. And now today, the Democrats are like the ones who are helping the black people, and then the Republicans are the ones who are trying to keep us down. But there's some people that say that today the Democrats are still like the slave owners and the Republicans are still like the heroes. But I want to ask you, has that changed, or is it still the same?
There was a party realignment. There was a party realignment that starts with the Lily White movement in 1928, which was the effort of Republicans to get Herbert Hoover elected as president in 1928. They instituted a Southern strategy to target 5 former Confederate states and appeal to the Southern segregationist Democrats in those 5 former Confederate states to get them to vote for Herbert Hoover as president. Herbert Hoover wins the 1928 presidency. He and the Lily White movement was a movement to ignore the needs and concerns of African Americans and to push us out of the Republican Party. Many people think that African Americans switched to the Democratic Party because of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's not true. By 1960, 2/3 of African Americans had already switched to the Democratic Party, because you got to go back decades before that. And the shift started happening with the 1928 presidential election. And there was a rise of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. Republicans are starting to ignore that. This is during the first 2 decades of the Great Migration, and more African Americans are migrating from the South up north, and more of us are being able to vote also. So we start slowly going over to the Democratic Party. President Franklin Roosevelt wins the 1932 presidential election. Herbert Hoover mishandles the Great Depression, which is precipitated by the October 1929 stock market crash. President Roosevelt wins the presidential election in 32. African Americans are leery of the Democratic Party, but they are more, they find Roosevelt to be more receptive, but also they like his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt. So over the subsequent years, more and more of us go over to the Democratic Party because they were more receptive to our needs. The 1947-1948 presidential election, the Democrats have a pro-civil rights agenda, okay, in opposition to Republicans, all right? And then today, all you got to do is look at policy. We deal with policy on the show. All you have to do is look at policy at the national level, the federal level, House of Representatives, U.S. Senate. The policies of Democrats, okay, in general, not every single policy, but in general, are more beneficial to African Americans than policy of Republicans. Look who's blocking raising the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 an hour. That's Republicans. That passed the House of Representatives in like June or July 2019. Okay, when you deal with things like the George Floyd Police and Justice Act, who blocked that in the Senate? Those Republicans. This passed the House of Representatives. When you go across the board, you look at environmental racism, you look at making college affordable, you look at relieving college debt. All you got to do is just look at the debate over coronavirus stimulus checks. Who was blocking that? Mitch McConnell didn't even want to take that up. Mitch McConnell. Oh, we got to go to break. Stand by. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Intuitive Design Clothing is an online accessory store that sells one-of-a-kind signature statement pieces for men and women. They also specialize in fashion consultations, closet organization, and decorating small spaces. Are you looking for a statement piece for a special affair, or would you like to add some select pieces to your ensemble of accessories? If you're looking for something different, definitely contact Kathy Norman, owner and CEO of Intuitive Design Clothing. Visit their website, intuitivedesignClothing.com. That's intuitivedesignClothing.com, and you can email her at info@intuitivedesignClothing.com. Intuitive Design Clothing is where every entrance is a great entrance. Soul Natural Beauty Products offers organic, plant-based skin and hair care products that will rejuvenate skin and naturally grow and thicken hair. Their whipped shea butter can heal or restore damaged skin cells to prevent hyperpigmentation and skin breakouts. All products are made with organic plant-based ingredients. Their maximum hair growth oil is fortified with organic herbal extracts and undeniably proves that Mother Nature knows best. It thickens, lengthens, softens, and conditions all types of hair. They even guarantee hair improvement within 90 days or a full refund. Their all-natural 24-hour deodorant leaves the body smelling fresh without sweating for up to 24 hours. It does not stain fabric, goes on smoothly, and has a refreshing lavender and frankincense aroma. It can be used by men, women, and even children. Place your order today at soulnaturalbeautyproduct.com. That's soulnaturalbeautyproducts.com, and follow them on Facebook at Soul Natural Beauty Products. With blackbusinesstee.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your black business. Know your numbers and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support black business, encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. Blackbusinesstee.com currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com.
Do you have an idea or business that requires app development or thinking of moving your IT resources to the cloud? We have post-paid and profit-sharing plans for unique ideas or profitable businesses. Who can take advantage of this unique program? Entrepreneurs with unique ideas, startups, small to medium businesses. Contact us 267-209-0352.
Visit nomadicsystems.net, nomadicsystems.net today. For 25 years, Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Race the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al-Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com.
Somebody said LBJ redlining. Redlining goes back to 1937. Redlining was created by the Homeowners Loan Corporation, which was created by 1934. Okay, that's under President Roosevelt. Redlining. We see redlining in the 60s, but that goes back to 1937. Stand by, everybody. All right, we're coming back for the last segment. We got to wrap this up. Okay, African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Stand by. We're on commercial break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We're going to have to get through some more of this stuff on Monday's show. I got a ton of information for y'all. I haven't even gotten through, I haven't even gotten through 20% of this information. I was just pulling stuff together because I have a ton of information on Dr. King. I haven't even gotten to the 8-page article I've written on Dr. King. We'll have to do that Monday night. We have to do a whole week. We have to do a whole week. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, January 17th, 2021. It is Dr. King Day weekend. We know Dr. King Day is coming up. I want to remind you all that starting on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, Dr. Karen Weaver, former mayor of Flint, Michigan, will start her show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF. You can listen to her Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we call her Mayor Dr. Karen Weaver, okay? She has a doctorate. She was a psychologist, if I remember correctly. And they need to send her to Washington to deal with some of those crazy ass people in Washington. She has a psychology degree. But listen to Mayor Dr. Karen Weaver. All right. Hey, if you like this type of information, also you can donate to the African History Network. $ the AHN Show through Cash App. $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. That helps us keep broadcasting 6 days a week, because we have Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You know, throughout the day, we rebroadcast a lot of these shows and a lot of my presentations on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. So we do rebroadcast throughout the day. And then these shows are in audio podcast format also. At if you go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on Listen to Podcasts. We're on 9 different podcast platforms, including iHeartRadio, Castbox, FM Player, TuneIn. So wherever you get your podcast from, search for the African History Network Show, the African History Network Show, also wherever you get your podcast from. Okay, we're going to go back to Wadsworth for a quick minute. I got to wrap up with Wadsworth and then get back to this, because as I was saying during the break, hold on just a second, Wadsworth. As I was saying during the break, I got so much information here, Dr. King. I've only gotten through barely gotten through 20% of the information I have. So we're going to continue with some of this throughout the week, okay? But go ahead, Wadsworth, with your last comment.
My last comment is this, Michael. If you're not, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you know about Byron Allen, he just purchased Right TV for NGM-TV.
The Griot TV, Byron Allen, the Griot TV. Yeah. I've talked about it here on this show.
Now he has that network, and you can watch that network. I'm a part of that. I'm part of that network, and I'm so excited to help promote that network in the Detroit area, because it's on 3.1 WHN Detroit.
Right. Now, Wadsworth, I don't know if we are supposed to use this station to promote that. I don't know. Okay, because usually they don't do that. but I get your point, though.
Well, the point I want to make is it's so awesome that it's so awesome that we have one black we have one black person that's actually doing something for that.
Right. No, he's doing some good things. Yeah. We share articles from thegrio.com here, and I've talked about him launching his network. He has April Ryan as a White House correspondent also. Okay. All right. Thanks, Wadsworth. Call back tomorrow night. Okay. All right. Yeah. And check out the articles from thegrio.com as well. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Let me get this other call quickly here. We've got Willie. Willie, line 2. Willie, welcome to the African History Network Show. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from, Willie.
Hey, Mr. Imhotep, and good Sunday night. I'm calling you from the Motor City,
okay,
aka Detroit.
Okay.
Hey, I'm really. You can tell I'm really enjoying your program tonight.
Oh, thank you.
About the great Martin Luther King Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But you reminded me of something. I saw years ago on another journalist program.
Okay.
His program was TV,
mm-hmm.
and he was just like yourself. He would really bring, information.
Was that Tony Brown?
That the media passes over.
Was that?
No. His name was Mr. Hodel. He was on TV 33.
Okay.
This was some years back.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to know if did you have any information on or know about there was a afternoon TV talk show host here named Mike Douglas, and he interviewed Martin Luther King. You know.
Oh, you're talking about the TV show. You're talking about the TV show,
right?
The Mike Douglas show.
Right.
Yeah, I remember the Mike Douglas show. That's from the 1970s. Yeah, I remember the Mike Douglas show.
Okay.
Man, I haven't heard of Mike Douglas in years, man.
No, but this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mr. Hodel showed a clip where Mike Douglas interviewed Martin Luther King, and I, you know, it's been some years back.
I've seen that clip.
Foggy, but
yeah, I've seen that clip. I've seen that clip. Yeah,
okay.
It's on YouTube.
So you know about it.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, well, great then. I'll have to check it out. But I do believe the subject was similar to what you're discussing tonight about, you know, how MLK and the civil rights movement. You know, it was about empowerment of Black people here in America. So
yeah, he was.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yep. Okay, man. Keep listening. Thanks, Willie. Thanks for calling in. Okay.
Okay, and have a good night now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to this clip here, and I have some other information to share with you. So we're going to have to deal with this throughout the week. I didn't even want to talk about Trump tonight. I mean, I got a lot of information. I had to do radio 6 days a week. I studied this stuff 24/7. We dealt with that all last week, you know, and then impeachment and everything and U.S. Capitol attack. We'll deal with a little bit more of that Monday, however much I can bear. You know, I got a ton of information on that, but we'll probably deal with Dr. King all throughout this coming week also. But let's go back to this clip. This is from May 8th, 1967. It's an interview with NBC News with Dr. King at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called After Civil Rights, Black Power. Let's go back to this clip.
Of the extremist behavior toward Negroes, but they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and all poor people. It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality and quality education a reality in our schools. It's much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we're getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality.
Do you think white people in this country, and I'm talking about non-segregationists, people thinking they're devoid of racism, do you have any idea what they want the Negro to be in America?
Well, it depends on the level that we are talking here, because I think you have to make a distinction between the people who are genuinely and absolutely committed in the white community on the question of racial equality. And I must confess that I think they're in a very small minority. I think the vast majority of white Americans will go but so far. It's a kind of installment plan for equality. And they are always looking for an excuse to go but so far.
Why are they looking for the excuse? What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
That's a part of it. And that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. Mm-hmm. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here and changed, treated in very inhuman fashion. And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. And that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Apart from wanting to live better, which all of us want to do, to raise one's children in a better way, to be better, does the Negro in America know what he wants to be?
I'm convinced that almost every Negro in this country, other than those who have been so scarred by the system that they've become pathological in the process, and we all have to battle with pathology, and nobody really knows what it means to be a Negro unless one can really experience it. And I know we all have to battle with this constant drain of a feeling of nobodiness. But in spite of this, I think the vast majority of Negroes in this country know that they want to be people, they want to be men, they want equality, period. It just boils down to that. And we haven't been able to be people. We haven't been men because of all of the conditions that we've lived with and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding conditions, whether it's in housing, or in the economic area, or in schools, or in the vicious credit practices that we face in the ghetto, and all of the problems of closed doors and constant defeats. But in spite of all this, I think we all know, basically, that we want to be men. We want to be persons judged not on the basis of the color of our skin, but on the basis of the content of our character.
Did you know
pause it right there. Pause it right there, Jalen. Pause it right there. All right. So that is from NBC News. That is called After Civil Rights, Black Power. That's from May 8th, 1967, May 8th, 1967. It is on NBC's website. It's on NBC News website, and it's on their YouTube channel also. Okay. So we'll post this link here. We'll share some more of that on tomorrow's show. I want to go to this other clip. We're going to go to Dr. King's speech on economic justice, Jalen. Just a second. So one of the things Dr. King was talking about in that interview and other interviews and speeches is how even white people who supported the civil rights movement in 64 and 65, and they were they felt horrible about Bloody Sunday, okay, March 7th, 1965, and the attack on John Lewis and civil rights leaders, and they were horrified by Bull Connor in Birmingham, Alabama, things like this, and the dogs and the water hoses. They were horrified by that. So they supported the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65. But then when it comes to economic issues, now that's where they draw the line, many of them. That's where they draw the line. And Dr. King was saying they're not committed to what it is in full that we want. I talked about the Kerner Commission report, which is extremely, extremely important. You can tie the Kerner Commission report into the report that came out about September 2020 from Citibank that dealt with how the U.S. economy had lost $16 trillion in 20 years from the year 2000 to the year 2020 because of racism and African Americans being locked out of, because of racism, less African Americans being able to attain a college degree, buy a home, or get a bank loan to start a business, and the impact, the negative impact it had on the overall economy. And it also showed the impact that racism has on white people who think that racism, many of them think that it benefits them, because racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, and racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, benefits, privileges, land, access to education, access to opportunity, etc., and they use that to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. So there's a whole presentation I've done dealing with how racism has cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion in 20 years. And we air that on the African History Network periodically. So if we look at the Kerner Commission report, blackpast.org, B-L-P-A-S-T, blackpast.org, has an article, 1967 National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. And very quickly, we'll talk about this throughout the week also. They talk about the Kerner Commission, which was commissioned by President Lyndon Johnson, July 28, 1967. It was actually the day after the Detroit Rebellion of 67 ended. And the Kerner Commission was designed to answer three questions. It was, they wanted to look at what caused the three questions were: what happened, why did it happen, and what can be done to prevent racial disturbance in the future. What happened, why did it happen, and what can be done to prevent racial disturbance in the future. In order to answer these three questions, the Kerner Commission, it was named after Governor Otto Kerner of Illinois. That's where it comes from. That's the ostensible name, Kerner Commission. The actual name was the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. So what they did was they surveyed 23 cities across the U.S., and they were looking at the rebellions that took place from 1964 to 1967. Okay. And the commission surveyed 23 cities across the nation which experienced a racial rebellion. They found that the racial disturbances were not the result of a single triggering event, but that in all cities surveyed, African Americans experienced severe economic and social disadvantages compared to whites. Severe economic and social disadvantages compared to whites. So we look at, before the break, I was talking about Republicans blocking $2,000 stimulus checks. Okay, Republicans not wanting to make a full commitment to fight coronavirus that disproportionately negatively impacts African Americans. And all you have to do is look at Mitch McConnell. Back during the summer of 2020, he let the U.S. Senate go on a recess for 1 month. They hadn't passed the coronavirus bill. Okay, they had because Democrats passed the $3.4 trillion Heroes Act in May. It was May 15th, 2020. It goes to the Senate and it died in the Senate. And then McConnell let the Senate go on a recess for a month. The $600 and $600 a week in federal unemployment insurance was set to expire July 31st, 2020. Everybody knew that. They didn't pass a coronavirus bill in the Senate to match the Heroes Act passed in the House by Democrats. The unemployment insurance expires. That runs out. The $600 a week in federal unemployment insurance wears out. Then they had time to get Amy Coney Barrett confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court in 8 days because Donald Trump thought that would help him steal the election in the U.S. Supreme Court. The day after they got Amy Coney Barrett confirmed, Mitch McConnell sends the U.S. Senate on another recess, and they still hadn't passed a coronavirus bill. Okay? So then you look at this, and then you look at who keeps blocking this. Now, the issues I have with Democrats, but I study policy, and their policies are much more, in general, at the federal level, national level, in general, much more beneficial than African Americans, for African Americans than Republicans. And at the same time, you look at who is trying to disenfranchise the African American vote, because all this turns on the vote. Policies are put in place by people who write laws, but they're voted in office, or they're appointed by somebody who was voted in the office. This is why in Georgia, this is why in 1963 in Georgia, and Dr. King was born in Atlanta, Georgia, Denmark Groover, state representative, segregationist Denmark Groover in 1963 implemented the runoff, the statewide runoff race. And that statewide runoff race was designed to lock African Americans out of statewide power, statewide positions, governor, senator, secretary of state, things like that. We've talked about that here on this show, and we'll probably deal with that some more tomorrow night. But the reason why they implemented it was because they said that if African Americans put all their weight behind one African American candidate and they win, like say for U.S. Senate in the primary, then if nobody gets 50% or more of the vote, then you have to go to a runoff race between the two top vote getters. So if African Americans put all their weight behind one African American candidate in the primaries, and that African American candidate wins, and you have multiple white people running in the primaries and they split the white vote, they gave white people the opportunity to have a do-over in the runoff race, and then all white people, regardless of political affiliation, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever, can all vote for that one white candidate to defeat the African American candidate because they have a numerical majority. White people in Georgia have a numerical majority. This is why it was put in place. So Reverend Raphael Warnock defeated that runoff race law that was put in place and advocated for by a segregationist designed to lock African Americans out of statewide political power in Georgia. And not only that, Reverend Raphael Warnock beat Senator Kelly Loeffler twice because he got 32% of the vote in the primary. He got a higher percentage than she did in the primary, and he beat her again in the general election. So what Reverend Raphael Warnock did with the help of Stacey Abrams and Latasha Brown and all the activists and things like that, that was not supposed to happen. This is one of the reasons why those white supremacist domestic terrorists on January 6th, this is one of the reasons why they were so upset. It wasn't just the presidential election, it's what went down in Georgia. African Americans rose up, and Georgia is a former Confederate state. And white people in Georgia took up arms to fight against the Union to maintain slavery. That wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Okay, I want to go to this last clip here. This is Dr. King. This is 1968. Dr. King in 1968 spoke at a church in Mississippi. Now, remember, February 24th, 1966, he meets with Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But in this speech here at the church in Mississippi, he puts the fight for land and the need for land front and center. Let's go to this clip, Jalen.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents for their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farm. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. This is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Okay. Okay. Pause it right there. Pause it right there. Okay. So the campaign he's talking about. People think he's talking about reparations. He's not talking about reparations. He's talking about the poor people's campaign. This is why you got to understand context. People just pull just stuff out he's talking about the poor people's campaign. This is 1968, early 1968. Okay. So this is what Dr. King is talking about. Okay. People just try to just make stuff up, But he said we're coming to get our check. He's talking about laws and policies and how laws and policies were used to lock African Americans out of land giveaways, massive land giveaways that then allowed white people to acquire land and have assets to pass on to future generations. All right. So check out the research the Homestead Act of 1862. History.com, official website of the History Channel. They have an article there dealing with the Homestead Act of 1862, and then also research the Southern Homestead Act of 1866. Read the article. Read the book, How White Folks Got So Rich: The Untold Story of American White Supremacy, as well. How White Folks Got So Rich: The Untold Story of American White Supremacy. And they talk about Dr. King in that speech from 1968 in Mississippi on page 74 of the third edition. Page 74 of the third edition. I just sent you an email, Jalen. We're going to go to that clip next year. We're going to squeeze that in. So I talked about Georgia and Reverend Raphael Warnock, okay? And also, some of you all know Reverend Raphael Warnock is receiving death threats, and one of the people who was arrested at the U.S. Capitol during that insurrection, one of those domestic terrorists, threatened Reverend Raphael Warnock. So News1.com has an article: Proud Boys member denied bail after threatening to kill Reverend Raphael Warnock. Okay, this is from January 15th, 2021. And it talks about here, let's see, Eduardo Floria, a member of the white supremacist group, was detained in Queens, New York on Tuesday with over 1,000 rounds of ammunition after police uncovered Floria's post on Parler, the social media platform Parler, favored by white nationalists, as reported by the Wall Street Journal. So he said, F. Reverend Raphael Warnock, loser. Floria responded to another user on the site under the name of, so they made some type of threat to him. Though authorities do not believe Floria attended the riot on January 6th, his intentions were made clear through his Parler post. Now, they also mentioned this other idiot, Jacob Anthony Chansley, and he's asking for a pardon. Prosecutors allege his own, quote, words and actions at the Capitol supports that the intent of the Capitol rioters was to capture and assassinate elected officials in the United States government, end quote, according to The Hill. We know the lead prosecutor has backed away from that definitive statement at this point, but we've listened to them chanting hang Mike Pence also. Chansley also reportedly left a note for Vice President Mike Pence in the Senate chamber that read, "It's only a matter of time, justice is coming," etc. So read this. So they talk about the Proud Boys threatening the life of Reverend. So the news follows the striking details that a member of the Proud Boys was arrested and denied after police discovered posts on Parler threatening the life of Reverend Raphael Warnock, the new senator there in Georgia. Okay, let's see. Let's squeeze in this clip here. This is from, this is only a couple minutes here. This is from 11alive.com. In Georgia, runoffs arose to limit power of black voters in Georgia, much of South. Okay, let's go to this clip.
Has shifted to the center of the political universe with 2 Senate races.
The process of runoff elections may seem fairly simple, but these contests once served a racially motivated purpose. 11 Alive's Joe Hankey with more for us tonight.
While many Georgia voters may be familiar with runoff elections, they may not be familiar with the history of runoffs in Georgia and across the South. At the Georgia state capitol in the 1960s, a state representative named Denmark Groover led a charge for runoff elections. A federal report looking at civil rights in America calls Groover a staunch segregationist who pushed for runoffs in Georgia as a way to challenge growing black political power. And, quote, support for the majority vote plan reinforced the moderate segregationist position. It did not remove anyone's right to cast a ballot, but it was commonly regarded as hampering African Americans to stigmatize block voters. While still allowing black voters to cast a ballot, runoffs at the time made sure candidates representing the white majority, not the interests of black citizens, would be elected.
They don't function precisely that way anymore, but one has to wonder what function they do have.
Cal Jolson is a political science professor at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. He says runoffs are linked to elections in the South, requiring a candidate to have more than 50% or a majority of votes cast to win an election.
Runoff is an opportunity for the white majority to come together and beat back a challenge from a black candidate.
Frequently, as you know, and when lawmakers such as Groover wrote and passed laws requiring runoffs, they did not hide their intentions.
Before anyone was politically correct, people spoke very directly about their sense of race and the importance of maintaining white supremacy. And that's what these electoral rules were intended to do.
Currently, Georgia is only one of 10 states, primarily in the South, using runoffs in primaries. Only Georgia and Louisiana use them for general elections. Jilson views runoffs as outdated election law.
There's less and less reason, and really fewer and fewer states as time goes by that use runoffs.
All right. So that's from 11 Alive in Georgia. Check out the article, Runoffs Arose to Limit Power of Black Voters in Georgia, Much of South Experts Say. That's from November 9th, 2020 at 11alive.com. All right. Hey, we have the lecture that I did, The Distortion of the Legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. We just posted the link here. It's about a 2-hour presentation. We have it on digital download and DVD. And it's available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Also, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show as well. Okay. Or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. That helps us keep broadcasting 6 nights a week, keep doing the research, stay on the air, pay some of the bills, etc. We have to get out of here. We'll be back Monday. We're here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stay tuned for Pastor Mo. Remember, right now, it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Okay. All right. Also, if you all want to, if you are an African American business owner and you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Also, okay. All right. So I got a lot more information on Dr. King. I didn't even get to the article dealing with myths about Dr. King, but we dealt with some of the myths just in the information that I shared with you. So we'll deal with this throughout the week because I have a ton of information. Okay, we'll deal with this throughout the week. All right, we got to get out of here. Okay, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Happy birthday, Muhammad Ali. Also born January 17th, 1942, and happy birthday as well to Dr. King, January 15th, 1929. Then also some other people are celebrating birthdays. We'll have to deal with a lot of the birthdays on our show Monday. We just ran out of time. There's so much information here. We just ran out of time. But some other people, celebrating birthdays, some other celebrities. Steve Harvey, born January 17th, 1957. He turned 64 years old. Also, Maxine Jones of the legendary group En Vogue. She was born January 16th, 1962. She turned 59 today. Love En Vogue. We know that Saturday, January 16th, was the birth date of one Sade. Oh, I remember when Sade came out, when she first came out. So Sade, of Nigerian ancestry, she turned 62 years old as well. And also Aaliyah. You see Aaliyah behind me over here to my left. Aaliyah, born January 16th, 1979. Also, we know she passed away tragically in a plane crash August 25th, 2001. Born Aaliyah Dana Houghton on January 16th, 1979. Okay, born in Brooklyn, New York, and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Okay, we got to get out of here. Talk to y'all too. Also, yeah, Michelle Obama. That's right. Michelle Obama's birthday is today as well. Michelle Obama, forever our first lady. She turns 57. So we'll have birthday acknowledgments also on Monday because I posted something on my Facebook page about Michelle Obama's birthday. Okay, as well. All right, we got to get out of here. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Talk to you all tomorrow night. Peace.
Visit 4glossygirls.com. That's the number 4glossygirls.com, and follow them on Instagram at 4glossygirls.
Do you have an idea or business that requires app development or thinking of moving your IT resources to the cloud? We have postpaid and profit-sharing plans for unique ideas or profitable businesses. Who can take advantage of this unique program? Entrepreneurs with unique ideas, startups, small to medium businesses. Contact us 267-209-0352.
Visit nomadicsystems.net, nomadicsystems.net today. With blackbusinesstea.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your black business, know your numbers, and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support black business, encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. BlackBusinessTea.com currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com. For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid is named among the changemakers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate Pain and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. Recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com.